The Everything Except the Law podcast is brought to you by Answering Legal. For more than a decade, attorneys have trusted our 24/7 virtual receptionist service to keep their phones covered and their clients cared for. Now, we're raising the bar with an AI-powered intake chatbot, live translation services in over 180 languages, and 76 seamless tech integrations. Our goal is to make running a law practice simpler while helping you capture every new client opportunity. And don't worry, our receptionist team is still the best in the business at turning first-time callers into loyal clients. Find out what's possible by visiting answeringlegal.com. You'll find a link to our site in the description of this episode. Let's get to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to Answering Legal's Everything Except the Law podcast. I am your host, Nick Werker. This is take 2, so if you are embarrassed or nervous to start podcasting, I messed up the intro the first time. But if this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we share expert advice on all the parts of running a law firm that attorneys weren't exactly trained for back in law school. With me today, I have my good friend, Ron Latz, the founder of LegalFenix. We have a lot to get into in this episode, but first, I want to learn everything there is to know about Ron. I do know a bunch about Ron, but I have heard, and this is by your own admission, before there was Ron Latz, the marketing strategist, fractional CMO guru, helping everybody get their marketing in order in the mucky space of legal marketing, you were in a band. Can you tell me a little bit about your band?
Throwback, Nick. First and foremost, thank you so much. And you didn't botch that intro as bad as you alluded to in your second attempt. And yes, I was in a band back in the day. It was something that was done throughout my later years of high school and early years of college. Admittedly, I was a terrible musician, but I did play piano in an indie rock band that eventually turned into a full-blown out metal band. We went on a couple tours. We went across the country, played in some pretty cool venues, played some neat shows in front of a decent amount of people, but I had these things called college loans and had to get a full-time job. So making the time that was required, just like anything, to go to the studio and practice and write, it wasn't fair to bandmates that I was spending time elsewhere. So we decided it was best to part ways. They got signed to a smaller little label. They did a couple more tours, kind of thought they made it, stopped touring, and that was, for the most part, pretty much the end of the band. But I think I shared with, it was on another podcast, or it was with a client. I've commented on it on LinkedIn. There's some videos out there. I won't divulge how you will find it, but if you do go to the depths of the internet, you can find some of it out there.
When we were preparing for this show, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it one try to see if I could find anything. So I Googled your name and then something else. And I found an article that said you were going to the Warped Tour, which I found very cool. That's it. I was also, once upon a time, a musician. I thought I was very good. I didn't get along with other people, though. And I couldn't understand why I kept getting kicked out of bands. And it was probably my fault, but I never went that far. I just dreamt of it and also had student loans and a much more, like, I didn't want to live in a van. Anyway,
fair, very fair. It is not an easy life by any stretch of the imagination. And we were very fortunate to have made some inroads and connections with some people. I don't even know how we were able to do so, that got us the exposure and the looks that a lot of, up and coming bands don't have. So we were very, very lucky and pretty good, right? It was just a lot of fun. So different life,
I think it's so cool. After that life, right, your second life, can you catch us up on your background and your experience in marketing and how you came to be the legal marketer that we know and love today?
Well, thank you. I think that after graduating college, kind of parted ways with the band, one of my first jobs right out of school was with New York Life and then First Investors, where I thought I was going to go down the financial services path. Got my life, accident, and health licenses, Series 6, 63, studying for the 7. And I got an opportunity to kind of jump into, which by the way it's all sales, right? Like when you're working with people identifying a book of business to try to sell any of those products, you have to sell and market yourself, right? Being in a band, tons of sales to promote yourself, selling tickets so that, people will invite you back to your venue because you bring a good draw. So, I've always had that kind of inside of me. But, after my first stint at Xerox, which that was back in the day, they invested heavily into training, their sales executives. You didn't just get thrown into a territory, thrown to the wolves, basically. They really did train you to make sure that you were able to go and offer the products and services that they would provide. I was selling into the public sector. I had moved on from there and found myself at Thomson Reuters within their fine law division. Again, we're talking well over a decade ago. That's where I really got into the marketing part with lawyers. So I had, 5 years under my belt with sales. Now I'm jumping into marketing, selling marketing and advertising to lawyers. And ever since that point, I truly enjoyed it. I became obsessed with the challenge of connecting individuals that were going through some of the roughest moments of their life with service professionals that can help them get through it. And it's not a product in which people necessarily go after. Most people try to avoid lawyers throughout most of their lives, except when you're buying a home or maybe you've got to go through some estate planning and things like that. But the challenge of attempting to create awareness and demand for something that most people try to avoid is something that I really enjoyed, right? So since that initial opportunity to work with lawyers and law firms, I kept a pulse on that. And, here we are today. I moved on. I worked at a smaller boutique legal marketing agency. My company has been incorporated for 8 or 9 years, and we just rebranded, renamed, and relaunched in January of 2024. And here we are today.
That's awesome. I find it so strange because I grew up, and I talk about this often. So my grandmother was a paralegal, I think when she turned 20, when my dad and his younger sister were very young. She became a paralegal. She worked at a firm for a specific lawyer, and he decided that he wanted to go out on his own. He went to my grandmother and said, I'm only going out on my own if you come and run the whole operation. That, I won't date my grandmother, was a long time ago because she still runs his personal injury firm in Brooklyn. When I grew up, everything that happened, she would always tell us this bicycle accident happened and this person is recovering money, or this car crash happened. And she would bring her clients to our Hanukkah parties or stuff like that because she had a really good relationship with them. And then I entered this world, right? The legal profession. I'm obviously not a lawyer. I don't really participate in lawyer marketing outside of speaking to our customers. And I never knew how not litigious people are, and that people don't understand that they have, recourse in a lot of things that are going on. So I'll give you a good example is I always thought that if you go bankrupt, right, you have no money and they foreclose on your house, you're just screwed. It's not really true. You have legal options. You have recourse. I thought if you get in a car accident, the insurance company just sends you a check and then you pay for your car and you move on. It's just not the case. And so I always find the perspective interesting that it's the concept of demand generation versus demand capture, right? Is there an opportunity? Do you even know that you're sitting on this case that could compensate you for a difficult thing that you're going through? So what's been your experience in that way? How important is it as a legal marketer to help people understand that they actually do have a case, even if they aren't cognizant of it?
It requires a lot of educating the market and letting them know that they might actually have a case, right? Individuals might not, for example, when you're talking about SEO and people are talking about I want to optimize and show up for catastrophic injury lawyer, most people aren't going to be searching that. Or we have these wrongful death pages on personal injury sites. The layman person, they don't know what wrongful death necessarily means. Or the difference is, to take your example, the difference, should I go through 7, 11, 13? What am I going to file for bankruptcy? What do I need to do here? I think most times, if you're in college and you've got an apartment, you think about some landlord tenant cases, they're not switching out this refrigerator or this dishwasher that's completely busted or broken. Or if you're in a city and you've got little rodents running around, like, I want to get a refund on my rent. Like, what do I need to do here? What's my recourse? What action can I take? A lot of it, especially depending upon, what type of advertising you are doing or what type of marketing you are doing, it does require you to be very informational and educational to let people know what options you do have at your disposal if you were potentially injured due to the negligence of somebody else, or if unfortunately like a relationship is breaking down and you want to, part ways with your spouse. Like, there's a lot of concerns about whether or not you're going to get to see your children, what's going to happen financially, how are you going to distribute your assets? These are types of things where through legal marketing, through a lot of content marketing, whether it's blogs, articles, practice area pages, or landing pages, it's our job to ensure that the consumer is educated and also knows the way in which the lawyer can actually help them, right? Because we want to make sure that those individuals are as qualified as possible. There's a tight fit as far as like the ideal client profile. So I do think that's very different than someone that might, consumer product goods, right? Like we're both we're Strava buddies, right? You do CrossFit, we go to the gym, we lift weights, we might go for runs or bike rides. Like, if you want to buy some new sneakers, you've worn sneakers your whole life, right? You know which ones are going to be good for you, which ones are comfortable, which ones might offer a little bit more padding or support. And you might jump on YouTube and, listen, you can go down a rabbit hole and trying to figure out what the best type of sport equipment or gear is, but people are experiencing that. They've purchased sneakers multiple times in their life. They haven't gone and engaged with a lawyer for legal services nearly as frequently. So there's a lot of education that is required in order to let people know that they have that as a recourse.
I love that answer because I saw this thing that like old school SEO has come like really far back around, because it was like, especially in my space, right? I'm like big B2B company. It was like, how useful are blogs in educating lawyers that they need phone answering, right? And so we try to do more high impact stuff, but it has come so far back around that the way people are searching for things is like, oh, we should be writing blogs to educate people on this specific thing that's changing in the market. There's so many aspects of law firm marketing that I don't think people even realize, because most of the attorneys that I've spoken to over the years that need marketing help, I was actually looking through, you get Snapchat memories. Are you on Snapchat?
I'm not, but I get like the Facebook memories about posts that were in years past.
I like Snapchat. My friends are on Snapchat, and it pulls them from your camera roll sometimes. And I had a screenshot, made me happy. I had a screenshot of a conversation that I had with a woman who contacted me. She was like, I have all these different websites. I don't know who's putting up these websites. She needed help to assess what was going on with her marketing. And she just kept saying over and over again, SEO, SEO, SEO. My SEO is bad. My SEO is this. And people get hooked on this term of just SEO. And I think it might be a side effect of SEO companies trying to sell SEO to lawyers for the last 20 years. And so that's what people are focused on. But I think an entire marketing strategy is something that's really necessary, especially for law firms that are looking to do demand capture of like what we're talking about, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about how you kind of teach law firms or consult with law firms, obviously, on the importance of having like a fully structured plan, not just SEO, and what that looks like?
Even when you have a financial portfolio, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. There's a level of diversification that is needed in order to protect your investments, hedge against riskier types of bets, and also ensure that you've got like your blue chip, your staples, your dividend stocks, right? You've got a 401k, like you've got a lot of different components of that financial portfolio to protect you to grow. It's going to be very similar when you have a marketing investment, right? SEO and brand, these are going to be long-term plays, things that you're going to continually invest into as a digital asset for your firm that you own. Then you've got some other channels that are more short-term investments that will bring in leads or visibility much quicker than it would take to develop backlinks and generate PR opportunities and produce content and get it out there to get some additional awareness, whether that's through paid search, paid social, things of that nature. I just don't want to have someone, a law firm, that puts all of their eggs in that SEO basket, because frankly, there are individuals that are going to go to, whether it's an LLM, and do a conversational type of prompt or query, and then go to search to validate that or do additional research. But it's only one piece of that entire puzzle. If you look at a Google page right now, you got 4 other placements there through Google local services ads, Google ads. You have AIOs, which are AI overviews. There's also AI mode, which is, again, much more conversational. You've got your map pack, the local Google business profile listings. And then all the way down at the bottom, you continue to have your traditional organic listings. So if you're only invested in one of those channels, you're never going to get the at-bats from those other channels, because you're just not even in the game. Now, we're just talking about digital and search. There's also, right, out of home, you've got network, you've got cable, TV, bus wraps, like streaming. There's so many areas that law firms can promote themselves. It's just really identifying which ones are going to put you in front of your audience at the right time, so that you can, like you just shared and we were discussing, can capture it. And that's going to be a little bit easier for some than it is others. And it depends on your competitive landscape and how much you're investing. There's a whole slew of things that you need to take into account when figuring out where do I push my chips in. But I think diversification is one of those things that, if you were relying on the tried and true for so long and you didn't test or experiment in other channels, and that tried and true falls out from under you, you're in a bit of a precarious situation.
I like your whole analogy of financial planning. And it made me think that there's a specific reason, and this is a really good argument for lawyers to not control all of their marketing, is, I won't ask you the question, but a few years ago, GameStop was a really hot stock and everybody was shorting GameStop. And I bought some GameStop stock and I watched it go up, and I bought a little more and I watched it go up. And then one day I was on the Reddit thread, obviously. Mm-hmm. They stopped it and they shut it down, and I lost all my GameStop money. And after that, I got a person who manages all of my investments, and I am not allowed to touch them. He consults me. He asks me questions on what I want to do. But for, like, by and large, because I know nothing and because I will make GameStop decisions with my own financial future, I do not touch it. I do think that where we're headed in this conversation is finding the right strategies to deploy that are correct for your law firm. But how do you figure that out? Because it's so different literally for everybody, right? Are you a new firm? Are you established? What's your history? What are your goals? How do you sit down with a law firm and diagnose which baskets to put eggs in, right? Like, what does that conversation sound like?
It's just like your conversation with your financial advisor, who likely is asking, what are your goals? What other assets do you have? Do you plan on having children? Are you going to purchase a home, or are you staying here? What type of debt do you have? Right? So similar to you, I also pay a financial advisor, because I'm very much in the camp that I'm going to pay a professional to do the things that I'm not an expert at or have zero expertise or experience with, right? So whenever I jump on a call with any lawyer or law firm or someone that is serving the legal community, legal services companies, that's the conversation that we have. What is it that you want to achieve? What is your goal, right? Do you have a benchmark? What is your expectation? How much are you looking to invest? What is your risk threshold? What have you tried? Have you tried the GameStop type of approach before? Or have you only invested in your 401k or, the S&P, or maybe you've got like dividend stocks, whatever it may be? I think that the similarities between, a financial portfolio and some of your marketing efforts, they're very tightly knit. You can look at it in a very similar fashion. So if someone is in an incredibly saturated, highly competitive market, and they simply just aren't capitalized enough to put the dollars that they need to into a particular channel, specifically like paid search or maybe local services ads, and their Google business profile isn't where it needs to be in order to compete in maybe a local pack, right? We look at some of the other options, right? What can you do from a local grassroots community involvement perspective? Maybe there's an opportunity in your market to develop, more personal branding on a platform on LinkedIn, where even our relationship has flourished over the past couple of years to make that relationship deeper, share referrals, engage with one another, right? Like those are the types of things that if you can take a look at the market in a little bit of a different fashion, or at least look at having a conversation with someone that can look at it a little bit differently because they do have that experience, that's where you're going to be able to make better investment decisions. So to your point, there's a lot of factors that are going to go into like what ultimate recommendation is made. But as long as we get the answers to those questions that I had kind of thrown out there initially, I can help them navigate whether it's what did you call it? The murky or whatever
I did. That is the word I used.
The murky vendor landscape, to say like, this is the partner that we think that could bring you to the success that you're looking for. Well, then great. Now they've got a little bit more of someone that is fighting in their corner so that they don't make a mistake.
I think so. One of the things that I often get really excited about is, and you have to understand that, and you probably feel this way too. Every day I come into work and I am a B2B marketer. I very much understand legal marketing because I have to understand my clientele and the prospects that I work with. And a lot of the principles apply. However, I won't affect as much change if I go to my local town street fair and start talking to everyone in my town that I work for Answering Legal. I'm the marketing guy. That's what they call me here, the marketing guy. And like that won't affect things at scale, right? But when I go to those street fairs, I get very excited when there's a tent for like a local business, right? Like a lawyer or an accounting firm, so I went to one recently for my buddy who has a math tutoring studio. And I'm walking down this street fair and I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. Like that person's giving out Frisbees. My friend is giving out like folders for homework and corny stuff that you give out, but he's engaging with the community. Mm-hmm. And I'm just pointing this stuff out loud to my wife, who's like, dude, you're obsessed. You need to like chill. And then I was very fortunate that Guy posted something about doing that. And I was like, oh my God, I finally have an outlet for this information because my wife is tired of hearing of it. So I like that in your plan, you sort of reconcile for that, right? Like it's so daunting, I think, to invest in marketing when you see and you look around that like there's huge law firms. Then you go outside and there's a Morgan & Morgan billboard in your neighborhood. And you're like, how do I compete with that? That guy's on track to make $900 million or $1.1 billion this year in revenue. I don't know what the profit margins is, right? And I think we diagnose those things. Like I'll look at what my competitors are doing, for example, and I'll say like, ooh, I need to do that. And I get caught up in that. Is that typically where you see marketing go off the rails for law firms? Because from my perspective, when do people reach out to you? Is it before they start something? Is it when they want to check something? And usually I assume that they're unhappy with the state of things. So what is it that you see that's like, oh man, you're totally looking at this and trying to copy that? Like where does all this stuff go off the rails? I know I get excited talking to you about this stuff because you do this every day.
No, it's all good. A couple of different ways to actually answer it. First is the David versus Goliath, right? Morgan & Morgan or some national firm comes into your market. They're coming to play with a very heavy TV, paid search, right? They've got, I don't know how many thousands of reviews at this point. So like they're trying to come in and actually dominate to see whether or not that market is going to be viable. Okay, that's one thing that a lot of firms, like they see that, they recognize it, they know they are not going to play that game, or they can't play that game because they cannot outspend them. And those are the ones that are going to lean into more of the community involvement and engagement, local grassroots type of marketing. Not saying they're not going to invest in SEO or paid search or things like that, but they're not going to be the ones that are spending like multiple six figures on a paid search campaign and multi-million dollar TV spots. That's one type of what I would call competitive obsession. Then there's the ones that are actually in your market that are within like a couple of million of your annual revenue, maybe the same size of your law firm, whether it's from a lawyer perspective or just total employee perspective, where I've definitely seen firms that just become completely blindsided and like get tunnel vision over what this competitor is doing and how they're doing this and which channels they've gone and the campaigns that they've run. Listen, if you are obsessing over that, I'm not saying that you should not have a pulse on what your competitors are doing. It's valid to understand where your opportunities are. So if you find a gap in the market, you can capitalize on it, right? But like running your strategy as a copycat approach to somebody else, they've already developed the creative, they've run the ad, they've looked at the data, they've optimized, and now they're on their next iteration, their next version, where you're just trying to copy what they've done for the first time. They're so far ahead in that regard. You could beg, borrow, and steal, but you got to make it your own. You might not be trying to build the type of firm that they are building, right? A lot of times, and I am fortunate that I can see the insides of a lot of these firms, especially when I was with Reuters, right? Like I'm working with a lot of these firms. I can understand where they're investing dollars and how successful that they might be. A lot of these firms, you kind of alluded to it earlier, like they're not even profitable, right? Or they're churning clients, or you could see it in their Google business profile reviews or on Facebook, like they're getting terrible reviews, right? They don't have the infrastructure or the resources in place to handle the volume in which they're out there marketing. All they're doing is investing in first pour impressions at scale. That's all they're doing. You don't want to replicate that. So you've got to take a very balanced approach. I think you understand the firm that you are trying to build. Look at the dynamics of your competitive landscape. Tie your business goals and objectives to the marketing strategy, and then deploy the appropriate tactics that are going to produce the results that you are looking for. And then you collect the data, you pull the levers, you optimize, and you run again. That's all.
I love David and Goliath. I got really into this. I read the Malcolm Gladwell version recently. My wife has like 6 Malcolm Gladwell books, and she said, you should read these. Am I a dog that you should come to me with sticks? And that's how you slay Goliath, right? Is you rely on your non-obvious advantages, right? So what sets you apart? I do want to talk about this because this is such a hot topic on LinkedIn. It makes me kind of happy that it is a hot topic because it's something that I've been working to address for years. So it's really cool to watch people get involved and spread awareness. But to me, intake, regardless of how good your marketing is or how good you are at being a lawyer, intake is the thing that's going to ultimately decide if your business is successful or not. And it's exactly like what you said. If you're paying for poor first impressions at scale, you can look really good. You can buy literally with money the #1 spot on Google Ads. You can optimize. LSAs is kind of like a crapshoot, right? But like for the most part, you can be up there. You can sponsor your Google business profile now. There's an ad in Google business profile. It's crazy out there. You can quite literally spend yourself into poor first impressions at scale. I'm going to steal that. That's so good. But marketers are so interested in intake. How you work with firms, how can you actually build the systems that make that a differentiator instead of a liability?
First, I wish I remember who shared it because it was on LinkedIn. It had to be an agency. It's fleeting me. If we find it, we have to give credit out there. But it was a screenshot of the map pack where a firm was getting an ad placement and they had like single-digit reviews. The agency was marketing into local, in which the competitors that were showing up in the 3-pack had hundreds, like 300-400 reviews. And then you've got this paid ad placement where, it was 5 stars, but the total review count was single digits. I don't really think that ad is going to work, right? Like you're going to pay for that click and you've got 3 to 4 other options, all that are 4.8 and above with hundreds of reviews, maybe, to your point, it's a crapshoot. It's possible. You got a 1 in 4 shot, I guess, to maybe generate that click. But like, that's where you've got to be a lot more thoughtful and strategic about like where you're pushing your chips into the table, right? Like you've got to look at that and understand like maybe this isn't where we should be advertising our paid search dollars, right? So to continue on with like intake and ensuring that you have the resources and the processes and the technology in place, it's the same thing. Like you've got to offer an incredible service so that you get referrals, you start to build a lot more brand loyalty and get brand advocates who are going to say your name, shout it from the rooftops, share it with friends, families, colleagues, all of that, right? Those, the non-service professional referrals that are coming there, that those are the ones that you're capturing at the lowest acquisition costs. So you make sure that you are doing whatever you can so that they are bringing in more business. But then with your marketing dollars, you've got to make sure whether you've got your call tracking in place, that source attribution data is being pushed into your CRM, and that you are also collecting the qualitative and the quantitative data so you can understand where did we generate the awareness from, what is the channel that captured that demand, so you can balance both of those and make more data-backed and informed marketing decisions. And I don't sell any of that. I'm not selling any of that technology. Like we help our clients set up and configure CallRail, and if they need like a basic native integration into HubSpot so that they're getting their source data, sure. Yes, but like full-blown builds, integrations, the implementation, we're bringing in partners. We're trying to bring in the best that the market has to offer so that they can get that infrastructure in place so that we can capture and get the data that we need so that we can make smarter investments.
You just took me back to my actual origin. Aside from my very short stints in my dad's Wise potato chip warehouse from the ages of like 12 to 16, my first job, unpaid, was an internship on a political campaign for county executive, Suffolk County executive. So I worked on this, and I'm an ambitious person. So I'm a kid working on this campaign, and I'm doing everything that they asked me to do. I'm knocking on doors. I'm handing out flyers. I'm making phone calls to people. And they asked me, like, do you want to be, I don't even remember what they called it, like a team leader or something I got promoted to. And they would bring team leaders into this meeting and teach you more about the tactics of a campaign. And I learned a couple of things. Number one, I learned how to make people very angry by calling them on the phone when they're at home. And number two, I learned about a principle that campaigns run. It's called get out the vote. Get out the vote is this really mundane thing that everybody like gets really charged up about. And if you think about it, it seems like it's going to be pointless. What we would do is we would go and find all of the people who had engaged with us in a positive way and just remind them when and where the election was happening. And like, do you have a plan to, we would literally ask the most simple, almost redundant questions. We would say, do you know how you're getting there? Do you know what time you're going? And we would just confirm every little detail to make sure that this person was going to go vote for our candidate on the correct day and time for a number of reasons. Competitors will run suppression, so they'll send people the wrong day to vote and they'll confuse people. But what I learned was the same thing applies to not only intake, but all of your client experience. You won't get a positive review 99% of the time unless you ask that person to give you a review. You're not going to get that person to sign whatever agreement you need them to sign and get paid unless you follow up with them and ask them to sign this thing and send you some money. And it seems so simple, and people will, we see this all day, right? They'll post like, this agency got 150 leads for this law firm and none of them converted. And we looked and they didn't send out the agreement, or they didn't follow up, or they didn't do this and didn't do that. And it's like, it seems very simple. And I know you get involved in the process. So like, how do you diagnose that? How do you figure out where that's falling off? And then what happens? How do you get to where you want to go there?
If it's very manual and there's no checks and balances or technology supporting it, or at minimum, like some standard operating procedures, you're pretty certain, based off the experience that I have, things are certainly slipping through the cracks, right? So there have been instances where, for example, a law firm will almost emphatically tell us, we don't miss calls. We've got an answering service. I'm not gonna go too far down this route here, but you put something in like dynamic call tracking software to see whether or not those phones are actually getting picked up, and you find that anything 10, 15, 20% of these calls are being missed, or you uncover. Unfortunately, I've run into this situation before where an agency unknowingly, they were given an email address for form submissions, and those forms are being sent to an address that is not even being monitored.
Oh no.
Right? Listen, this stuff happens. It's not always malicious intent. Mistakes are made, but if you're not dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure that, you are giving your partners the correct information that they need in order to make you successful, there's going to be some balls dropped. So first thing, if they don't have any of these tools in place, we recommend that they put, at least at a baseline, some call tracking so that we can use that as kind of like a poor man's CRM to start qualifying inbound leads, see which channels they are coming from, and put some tracking numbers on local, on social, on organic, LSAs, things like that. Then we collect the data. After we collect the data, we go and we bring it to them. We say, listen, here is the information. We don't have any coverage when intake is going to lunch. We are missing a percentage of phone calls between 1 and 2 p.m. or from noon to 1 p.m. or after hours, right? Like these forms that get submitted, no one is calling them back the next morning. Like we need to put somebody on that. So one of the things to use technology is to identify where the leaky funnel might be existing. The other thing about tasks, that's where I believe wholeheartedly that every single business should be leveraging some sort of CRM, even if it is the most basic type of version that you can get, the free versions, whatever it is. You can get your contacts created, you can associate them with your deals or opportunities, and then have tasks to remind the people that are supposed to be following up so we don't forget these things. Like everyone is busy. Everyone is trying to, hopefully do their best job throughout the day, but things get in the way from us from doing that. So I think that's where technology really does make a difference and can help you improve not only the productivity, but the efficiency, and make sure that you're offering the service as you intended to offer it.
I want to ask you one more question before I let you go. I think something that I was very shocked to learn about, and that I'm still learning about, is lawyers go out on their own and it's like, I practice law. And then you look at other companies and it's easier to identify this at like the B2B level because it's like a logo, right? And you follow the logo and then you know what the company is. They have a slogan and they have their differences that make them better, right? But how do lawyers go about doing that? How do lawyers brand themselves? How do you build brand as a law firm?
The distinction here is that most individuals are going to be working with an individual, a person, a lawyer that then works at a law firm. So yes, you can have the logo, you can have the tagline, you can have the slogan. And this could be a whole nother episode on how much messaging and positioning within legal is. I mean, I think saying that it's neglected is a nice way of putting it. But at the individual level, that's why you see this influx of legal professionals and lawyers flocking to LinkedIn ever since the pandemic. People are trying to share their perspectives, share stories about their experiences, their expertise. I don't look at LinkedIn as a lead gen platform. I don't think lawyers should necessarily either. I think they can develop relationships with non-same practicing attorneys. Like non-same practice area attorneys, right? The PI lawyers that might necessarily be looking for relationships with non-PI lawyers so they can refer them cases. Sure, that's going to be a piece of it. But when you are trying to let people know who you are, what you do, how you do it, why you might be better than the alternative options that all consumers have at their disposal, it's like marketing one-on-one, Nick. Like you have to develop that know, like, and trust. right? If people do not know you, they're not going to call you. Same thing. If they don't like you, they're going to go call someone else. And if they don't trust you, it's very unlikely that they're going to hire you. So through content, whether it be marketing copy, we talked about blogs, kind of going full circle here. Maybe it's video, right? So like people can now see you and I speaking. Most of our LinkedIn content is text-based. There's a little bit of a diversification, right? We can share these videos, we can clip them, we can put them on YouTube or Reels or right on LinkedIn, on the website, like a lot of different ways. And I think that when you are looking at trying to build that brand, right, you just got to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position where this is where your audience is spending their time. This is where your ideal client is going to invest resources into, which mostly, again, it's their attention that they're investing, so that you have an opportunity to just take up a small little part of their mind when they think of, oh, like I got into an accident, right? Like I am hurt. The car might be totaled. I remember Mike or Bob or Mary, like sharing the stories about how they might have helped someone that was in a similar position as I am. It's not always perfect, but if you do it enough, you will start to get that mind share and capture it so that hopefully you get those calls in the future.
That was very interesting. I promised I wouldn't hold you up, and I almost kept that promise. But if any of our listeners were inspired today and wanted to hear more from you or the LegalFenix team, which they should do, because you guys have the unbiased approach to marketing where you're not trying to sell them anything. You're just trying to point these people in the right direction. What's the best way for them to contact you, and what are they going to get?
I would say check out LegalFenix.com. I'm on LinkedIn trying to share whatever I know. I do not know it all, but I will share whatever I know on that platform. We also host a monthly webinar. I'm unsure when this will drop, but those are usually on the third or fourth week of the month. And if you want to get some more longer form content that goes a little bit beyond what I share on LinkedIn, I would head over to the website and subscribe to the LegalFenix newsletter.
I read that newsletter. Is it weekly? It's awesome.
It's a little bit more frequent. I'm trying, Nick. I'm trying to
It's good.
increase the frequency as much as I can. There's only so many hours in the day. I'm trying to get it out a little bit more.
That's a good one. I unsubscribe to a lot of newsletters, but I keep that one. And
I appreciate it.
I hope you take that as the compliment that I mean it to be. But Ron, thank you seriously so much for joining us today. Thank you to all of our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. We'll be back with another episode of Everything Except the Law soon. Be sure to check out previous episodes of our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. Links to everything covered today in today's conversation can be found in the description of this episode, including LegalFenix.com, Ron's contact information, his LinkedIn profile, and the upcoming webinar, which I will make sure to put the correct one up there. We will see you next time, everyone.